What's going on, guys? Today I'm bringing you a skin fade comb-over tutorial that I did on someone who cut their own hair in quarantine. It was kind of a restoration haircut from what he did on himself a few days prior, and at the end the haircut turns out pretty clean, so I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so as you can see, he has some dark spots in the middle of his fade area, but he has some pretty straight hair and it's not too hard to fade. But there's some inconsistencies in his hair that I had to watch out for since he did his own haircut. And he even used shears on top. But to start the blend, I used the magic clips with the blade all the way closed. Whenever I do a drop fade or a low fade, I just punch the guideline in with the trimmers. But since I'm doing a mid fade here, I just use the clipper closed to set the guideline. I like to do the step all the way around the head. That way I make sure the blend is even. Now I'm taking my trimmers and I'm shaving off all the hair underneath that guideline. I only cut about an inch of hair that's underneath the guideline with the clipper closed. That way I leave myself with a reference point and I know where to start flicking out when I go underneath it with the trimmers. This is a good method to avoid creating any hard lines to take out. Now I'm using my Andis shaver and I'm going about the same amount below the trimmer area to create a more seamless transition. Notice I use the shaver with the logo facing away from me when I'm shaving a large area, but I use the shaver with the logo facing me when I'm cutting in any tight areas that I need to be more precise in. The shaver cuts more aggressively when you have the logo facing away from you. Now I'm taking my magic clips with the lever all the way open and I'm going up about an inch above the line from the clipper closed. And I go all the way around the head with this step too. This is the last step that I do all the way around the head, and it's just to make sure that the blend will be even. After this step, I just finish one side, move on to the next, and then connect it in the back. Now I have to blend from the open clipper to the closed clipper. And I do that by slowly closing the clipper as I work my way down the fade. So I put the guideline in with the open blade, then I close it up a little bit and I go underneath that open blade. Then I go just about halfway on the clipper and I go about halfway up that guideline. And last I go down to the clipper just in between halfway and all the way closed, and I go up about a quarter of the way. After doing these steps, you might still see some dark spots, so I usually play with the lever to knock them out. Now I have the number 1 guard on and it's all the way closed, and I'm setting in another guideline about 3/4 of an inch above the line from the open blade. Now I'm going with the half guard all the way open, and I'm going to just below that number 1. Once I have a guard on, I no longer do the in-between steps. I just do all the way open, halfway closed, and then all the way closed. I'm taking the number 1 all the way open and I'm going up about another inch. I know that I'm only going to be fading into the number 3 at the part, so I'm trying to stretch this blend out. He likes his ridge to be nice and tight because he has really straight porcupine type hair, so it likes to poke straight out. So it has to be pretty long in order to lay down. That's why I just take the number 3 all the way up to the part. Now I have the number 2 all the way open. And I use the Speedo guards for the number 2 and 3 on this haircut. They're universal guards, so they work with most clippers and clipper brands. But the main reason I use them is because they allow me to skip the 1.5 guard. So basically I just use the wall half guard, the wall 1 guard, and then the number 2 and 3 Speedo guards for this haircut. And the Speedo guards do have completely different sizes on them than the regular guards, so I'll leave the sizes in the description. But after the number 2 open, I close it halfway and then I close it all the way. I apologize about my shoulder being in the way of this clip, but basically I'm taking the number 3 all the way to the part where the hair starts to come over, and I'm following that line. I went back to the number 2 guard, opening and closing it to try and get a smoother blend. Most of the footage on the right side and back got cut out because I was covering the camera. But here I'm just doing a little bit of clipper over comb to try and detail the blend a little, and also to remove some of the hair hanging over the fade. Now I'm wetting the hair to get it ready for shear work. And you can tell in the back that he has some hairs poking out in different directions. I think what happened is his hair wasn't all the way combed over, and he took a number 2 or 3 guard and just rode it straight up, clipping off a few of the hairs that were supposed to be in the comb over. So we just had to let those hairs get a chance to catch back up. And at the end of this haircut, there's still going to be some weight on this side where the bulk falls onto. And that's because he went up too high with the clipper. And we did this haircut a couple days after he did it himself, so I did my best with what I had to work with. But for shear work, I just take some hair from the middle of the front and I'll work my way to the back. Then I use that as a guideline to do the same thing for the left and right side. When you get to the side where the bulk falls onto, you definitely want to curve it a little. Just don't curve it too drastically, because if you do, you'll end up with something more along the lines of a mohawk. Now I'm lining up the vertical bar before I line up the corner on the side where the part will be. Normally I line the front up first and then the vertical bar, but since his hair is a little sparse, I couldn't really tell where his hairline was, so I needed a reference point. And I like to go as natural as possible when it comes to a hairline like this. I put the part in on camera, but the angle was so bad that you wouldn't really get anything out of it, so I just cut it out. But I wanted to show you that I used my shears to go back over the part to clean up any loose hairs hanging over it. But this is the finished product. He likes his haircuts to be pretty natural, so we didn't line anything up on the right side. But let me know what you guys think about this haircut in the comments below. I appreciate you for tuning in.